Hello, my name is Corey Redderkop, the CEO here at the Greater Langley Chamber of Commerce, and thanks for joining us for another one of our candidate interviews in advance of the 2025 federal election coming up on April 28th. The Chamber is the business association for Langley Township and Langley City, and we've invited all the candidates in each of the three Langley ridings to come and have a one-on-one with us, talk about their key issues and what they want to represent Langley in Ottawa with. So these videos are going to be posted unedited on our website at langleychamber.com and our YouTube channels, and then shared through our communication channels for our members and stakeholders to get a chance to meet their candidates in the lead up to final election day on the 28th. Today, I'm joined by Debora Soutar, who's running in the riding of Langley Township, Fraser Heights, with the Green Party. Debora, thank you for joining me.
Hi, glad to be here.
I will. I appreciate you taking the time off from the campaign to join me. So, did you want to kick off and maybe introduce yourself and your background and kind of what got you into running for this election?
Sure. My name's Debora Soutar. I live in Chilliwack, which is very similar to Langley Township. I'm the CEO for the Chilliwack Hope Riding. And after successfully recruiting a candidate for this riding, I allowed my name to stand for Langley Township. My background in politics is a little varied. I ran for Chilliwack City Council twice. Although I wasn't selected to council, I found it a really rewarding experience, and I just love meeting the public and having a more disciplined, personally um, approach to civic issues. And I feel the same way about federal politics. I mean, we can read the news, we can watch some television, but when you actually talk to people with a goal in mind, it hones your listening skills and makes one more aware of just how much is going on in your community. My son works for the Green Party in Ottawa, and he's been also a great little nudger, a great support. And why did I choose the Green Party? Well, it's a perfect fit for my values. I'm a retired forester. I've always been a nature nut. And so that nature piece, of course, fits quite nicely. But there's the other pieces about social justice and electoral reform that appeal to me also.
Awesome. Well, very nice to meet you, and thanks for putting your name forward to serve Langley Township, Fraser Heights here. Um, let's dive into some of the questions we wanted to discuss with you, and maybe you'll tell me it's not the number one issue you're hearing about, but for us it certainly is, and that's the cost of living, cost of doing business, just the cost of everything. And whether we're talking to our members who are business owners trying to keep the doors open, small businesses trying to make a go of it, or their employees and in their personal lives and local families, just the cost of housing and of food and of everything. What's your perspective? What's the Green Party's perspective on what they would do or what you would do in Ottawa to lower the cost of living, help our businesses succeed, and help Langley families get ahead?
The Green Party of Canada feels really strongly, as do I, that people are just underpaid. Everybody's working hard. Lots of people have good jobs and they can't make ends meet. And we blame the cost of goods, but we have to look at the other piece too. Are people being compensated properly? And we know they're not. We know that people on social assistance, there's no way they can make ends meet. People on disability, there's no way that that's enough money for them. And then people who are just doing their jobs, they're paying their taxes, they're showing up to work, and they just can't pay the bills. So we would advocate or propose to raise the minimum living wage, not the hourly rate that gets raised all the time and just creates a vicious circle, because then the employer has to raise the price of goods, etc., and it just spins in a circle. But actually subsidizing people's income so that they can make ends meet. And we know that the benefits are there, because the cost of not doing that is all of the pressure on our emergency healthcare system, the pressure on our policing, the pressure on all of the agencies that are trying to help everybody with their food banks and shelters, etc. All those people should be able to live in their own home and pay buy their own groceries, but they can't. So people want to help them. I think the best way, and the Green Party of Canada does, is we'll give them the resources so that they can do that.
Appreciate that. And maybe this when I'm talking to people, especially the last month or two, the maybe second issue or sometimes first is all the uncertainty and the stress caused by President Trump and the tariffs. Um, just global instability that we've seen over the last couple of months, and that certainly has been a key part of this campaign as well. What's your perspective? What is Green Party's perspective on not just how should Canada be responding to the threats and of tariffs from the states, but how should we be building our own competitiveness, our own internal trade to make our economy a bit more resilient to these types of shocks?
I think we all agree that a lot of the ideas are long overdue. The relaxing or improving trade between our own provinces, investing in infrastructure, investing in manufacturing, investing in our own resource extractions and use. We just haven't done that. It's expensive. And now the push is there. It's not any less expensive, but the sense of urgency is pushing us to make these, I think, wise decisions. When I worked for the Forest Service, way back when I first started, there was the softwood lumber agreement, or as I like to call it, the softwood lumber disagreement. And our biggest problem was we only had one trading partner, or virtually only one. We knew then, this was in the 80s, that we needed to diversify, and we didn't. So just like COVID, just like climate change, these are very huge topics, creating a lot of uncertainty, but they're also that pressure, that push that brings out the best in us, because we can do it. We have the capacity, we got the brains, we got the bodies, we got the ambition, we got the resources. There's no reason why we can't come out of this on top.
I'm going to pick up, you mentioned infrastructure in your response there. So I'm going to pick up on that. And I want to get your sense of how, so Langley is one of the fastest growing communities in the province. And so with that comes a lot of growing pains on our infrastructure, both hard infrastructure in the ground, our pipes and our sewers and our roads, to our healthcare infrastructure and more community supporting infrastructure. How would you make sure that if you're elected to represent Langley Township, Fraser Heights in Ottawa, how would you make sure that our community, this riding, receives its fair share of federal dollars and gets all the infrastructure that needs to support the growth that we're seeing here?
We know that a lot of these decisions are municipal and provincial in nature, but the federal government can provide the funding, the federal government can provide the investment, and the federal government can work with partners, private partners, to also invest in these things. Now, we know that Langley, just like Chilliwack, is very a pivotal location because of the agriculture that's just so huge right now, and the waterway, the Fraser River. It affects us all both positively and negatively. And then housing for the commuter traffic, a place for people to live who need to work in Surrey and in Vancouver. So yes, we do need to invest in those pieces of infrastructure, transportation, protecting farmers, agriculture, and of course, flood protection. Now, flood protection, the federal government definitely can get involved in. That's a place where we have a responsibility. And then the seed funding, or the supportive funding, the partnerships that we can build to have light rail, to have high speed rail, and to support the agriculture.
And I guess going hand in hand with being the fastest growing part of the province is where all the people are going to live. And we know
Yeah.
housing affordability is a huge challenge, just whether we're talking for young people trying to get into the housing market, for the business community, we've workers can't afford to live here and they have to live further afield. It makes it harder to retain and attract them to be employees. What's the Green Party's perspective on? There's been lots of announcements in this campaign on housing affordability and building. What's the Green Party's perspective on the federal government's role and what they should be doing around creating housing and housing affordability?
So there's the two parts. One is, why can't I afford it? Because I don't make enough money, which I addressed a bit earlier. I think people should be paid better, and the federal government is in a position to assist with that. And then the other is housing. There's lots of houses being built, but they sure are pretty big, aren't they? It would be much more sensible to invest in modest homes, to have layers of housing in what they used to call starter retirement homes. I had one when I first started out, and it was great. It was very affordable. It was modest in size, but it met my needs. Then, as my income grew and my family grew, I was able to move into a larger home and free up that home for a retiree or for another young family. We just don't have that kind of housing depth. And I think that's important to have a better plan instead of letting developers do as they wish. There's no plan. I mean, and I think developers would probably appreciate that too, because then they would know where to direct their efforts. We have the agricultural land reserve, which is precious. We cannot be building on that anymore. And we can't be building on the floodplain. That's just really, really risky. We saw that happen. So what does that leave? Well, that leaves infilling, not a bad idea. It leaves going up, not a bad idea. And also developing the side hills as best we can.
Great. We're galloping along our time here. We haven't. I wanted to touch on, and we kind of hinted at a few pieces here with the floodplain and flood mitigation. Obviously, the climate challenges facing not just Langley Township, Fraser Heights, but the province and the country. What do you think are the biggest things that we should be talking about as a community around tackling the climate crisis and how well, what measures you want to see Ottawa taking that they aren't already doing?
The Green Party of Canada has proposed a civil defense force, not unlike the military, but not bent on military might, but that same kind of structure to help people who are in emergency, because we know those emergencies are coming, and we can help with preventing emergencies too. So that would be a very simple example. It'd be the wildfire interface management, where we know we've got all kinds of down wood and everybody's kind of looking over their shoulder, nervous if they live on the hillside. If the fire starts, is it going to be here? That's just a very simple example, but the more complex examples would be managing the major water courses. And there are lots of things that we can do to give a place for water to go when it wants to come. We don't have to just channel the water into the Fraser, into the Sumas, and hopefully have it stay in the Nooksack. We can create swales and ponds, which are also habitat and are also good for water management in all times of the year. It just gives those low-lying areas some value. The water has a place to go, and then it can release slowly. I live right beside a slough, and a slough has that function. Is great. The water rises really quickly on the main stem of the Fraser, and then it backs into the slough, and then it dissipates slowly. The slough's got capacity, and it's one of its functions is just to hold water, and at the same time it creates recreational opportunities, and it's important habitat for riparian species and salmon. Those are just really simple examples, but having this federally funded force creates employment. Those people can get really good job skills, and they can also be supporting their communities and be mobile to be there in the event of an emergency, and between emergencies, working hard on building the prevention tools that we know we need.
So we'll put a pin in it there. We're up against the clock, but maybe last minute comments or final words. We're just under a week away from the final vote. Any closing remarks to the voters here in Langley Township, Fraser Heights, on your behalf?
Well, I'd like you to know that if you want to vote green, don't worry that you're throwing your vote away. It's important to vote with your heart and vote with your values. If the other parties are not where you want to place your vote and you want to vote green, do it. That will send a message to the other parties that they should be listening. They should be listening to you, that you care about the climate, that you care about the environment, that you care about social justice, and you might not necessarily be lining up exactly with their values. It's not throwing your vote away. And I'm happy to answer any questions that people have. I'm available by phone or by email. It's been a pleasure working with the people of Langley Township over the past few weeks.
Awesome. Well, thanks so much for taking the time to chat with us today. All the best on the campaign trail.
Thank you. It's been really nice to meet you.